Hello everybody, Mama Sammu here. Today I'm going to be making a video on how to measure yourself for a corset. This video is mostly going to be for people who I need to measure themselves for commissions, but it can also be useful if you're making your own corset and there's no one around to help you measure. It is actually kind of difficult to get accurate corset measurements on your own, so for this you're going to need some elastic as well as, a measuring tape. Other than that, you just need yourself. And oh yeah, for a corset, you're going to want to wear very tight-fitting clothing, at least for measuring it, just so you don't have any extra, padding. You wouldn't want your corset to be loose in the chest because you had a padded bra on. So the measurements, I'm going to miss all the measurements I'm going to be taking down below, but there's going to be about 8 or 9 of them. So bear with me. First off, we are going to start with your bust measurement, which you need to take at the apex of your chest, which would be the widest point. This measurement, you don't want it to be very snug, because otherwise you'll be completely popping out before you even start tightening things. So you just want it to be nice, sit nice and, nice and so it doesn't fall down, but don't make it taut. So you just want to, and you want to make sure that everything is going straight across your back so that, you don't get any extra inches from tilting. So after you have that measurement, you're going to want to take that piece of elastic, or one of the pieces of elastic, and put it around that bust line. So pretty much just put it on, and so that later when we're measuring between our main measurements, we have an accurate line to go on. Sometimes it's hard to remember exactly where you measured last time. So now we've got our bust line in place. Let's move along. Next we have the underbust. So this one you want to actually be a very, very snug measurement because this is where all the support is going to come from. So make sure to make a nice snug measurement there, and this is going to be right where the underside of your band would go, just right under your chest. Let's see. Next measurement is going to be the waist. Now most people think that the waist is around their belly button, but actually it's whatever is the smallest point on your side. So you're going to go down, 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 and then when you're stopped by something, that's your waist. So just find that smallest point and take your measurement. First, you want to take 2 measurements here. You want to do the natural measurement, just chilling out, relaxing, whatever. And then you're going to want to do your cinched measurement, which will be the final measurement for the corset. So for that, you're going to want to suck it in really hard and pull your measurement in. So, yep. And you can adjust this. You can make it a little smaller or a little looser depending on your comfort. Yeah, for cinching, you don't want to go too far, especially if you're short torsoed, because your ribs, they're right there. Like my ribs are right there. They can't go in much more. So for my waistline, I'm going to go ahead and use the tops of my leggings as my line measurement. The next one is going to be your high hip. And I thought that this was your actual hip for at least the first 2 years I was sewing. But no, this is your high hip, and it is that first hip, the top of your hip bone, like right after that waist there. You get the top of the hip bone, and that is your high hip. And that is where the sides of most corsets tend to end. You know how corsets they shape and they come down in the front, they tend to stop at that high hip measurement. And that one's going to be another, somewhat, not crazy snug, just a loose measurement. And the last main body measurement you're going to need is around your actual hip. And your actual hip is quite low. It's almost at crotch level. But to find that one, you're going to want to find the widest point on your side here. So you felt the top of your pelvis. Now you want to feel for the bottom of your pelvis over on the sides here. So make sure it's going nice and straight across your booty. When you take your measurements, this is another one just like the chest, you really need to be careful about things slipping up. All right, so now we have all of our main body measurements. Now we got to get the more finicky measurements. If you're doing an overbust corset, you're going to need to get both your front bust and your back bust, since you don't want your corset to be shaped the same way on both sides, because go figure, we're not shaped the same way front and back. So to get the front corset measurement, you're going to split yourself in 2 along the side. Excuse me, I dropped my tape measure. So I luckily have a seam in my bra right over here, but you can just feel what feels the center, and whatever you choose, make sure it's the same on both sides. So you're going to measure from there and go straight across along that same bust line over to your other half, as it were. So that's going to be your front bust, and you can take that and you can either just subtract it from your first bust measurement to your back bust, or you can do it manually. If you do it manually and your numbers don't add up to that full bust measurement, double check. All right. Next, we're going to be doing the lengths, and this is where you can get fairly finicky with corsets, because most mass-produced patterns, they don't account for torso length, and that's why a lot of people, if you have either a long or a short torso, standard patterns or standard corsets don't tend to work as well, or they feel more uncomfortable. So these measurements need to be very accurate. That's why we have our elastic bands. They give us a nice straight line all the way across. So make sure all of those are in the proper spots. You know, if you need to readjust them, refeel for where, you know, and generally you'd generally be putting these on as you do the measurements. I just had them in place already. So now we're going to take straight down, and you don't include the curve of your chest here. You need to go straight down. So it's easiest to do it on the side, and you can feel for that piece of elastic to get you want to get your bust to the underbust as your first one. And mine's just a measly 3 inches, which is actually fairly standard, it's not too odd. Some of these measurements are going to be fairly short. So I got 3 inches there. Now we're going to go to from underbust down to the waist. This is the one that tends to vary a lot more on people. Like mine, I'm sitting at about a 4.5 here. But I made a corset for someone who was at a 3, and I also made a corset for someone who was at a 7 or 8. So this is where your variance can really kick in. So make sure this measurement is accurate. Measure twice, make once. All right, so next you're going to repeat that process for the waist and the high hip. This is one where it's going to be a little harder to get a straight measurement. So if you need to hold the tape a little away from your body, maybe go in front of a mirror, but you just need to get a straight down measurement from that hip, from that waist to your high hip. And then again from your high hip down to your natural hip. And that should be all of the measurements you will need for making a basic overbust corset. Also, all the measurements I would need to make one for you, which if you're interested in getting one from me, please check out the link to my Facebook page and send me a message. And I hope this was useful and helpful for at least someone. So I will see you guys next time I have an idea for a video. All right, bye-bye.